In another world, the story begins in a distant land hanging beneath a growing shadow. He explains that to defeat the resurrected demon lord, God reincarnated him and named him the hero. Yet despite that grand fate, he ends up overwhelmed as several girls crowd around him and leave him utterly flustered. He stands in the arena with sword in hand while the surrounding knights hesitate, making the pressure around him impossible to miss. The officials praise him for facing the elite knights alone and proclaim that he truly is the hero chosen by God. But they warn that defeating the demon lord alone would be too great a burden, so they urge him to begin his journey with another person and mention a skilled priest recommended by the church. As he walks through town, he hears that monsters have appeared in a neighboring settlement too, and that even transporting goods now will require escorts. Realizing what that means, he concludes that the threat of the demon lord is no longer distant. He then reflects that not only the village where he was reincarnated and raised, but the surrounding areas as well are now in danger. He recalls that since being chosen as the hero and receiving God's crest, he has endured relentless training and pushed himself to the brink. He steels his resolve and vows that he will save this world and everyone living in it no matter what. At the grand church, the recommended priest introduces herself as Heiress Enrio and says she is pleased to meet the hero. He awkwardly returns the greeting, trying to start things on friendly terms. Heiress suddenly panics and insists that what he is thinking is not the case, leaving him baffled by her outburst. Flustered, she explains that the church where she lived had a strict rule forbidding men, so she never had a chance to speak with any. Still embarrassed, she admits that the thought of meeting a man like the ones from fairy tales makes her nervous. Realizing she has made things too personal before they have even faced the demon lord, she hurriedly apologizes as the atmosphere turns painfully awkward. He laughs it off and says that is a relief, easing some of the tension between them. With a warm smile, he confesses that he was nervous too because she is his first companion. Hearing that, Heiress is surprised and softly realizes that they were both feeling the same way. Heiress smiles and tells him it is nice to meet him once again, and he politely reaches out to greet her. They shake hands and she returns his greeting with a composed reply. As he suggests they set off, Heiress quickly stops him and asks him to wait a moment. Turning serious, Heiress warns that if they continue as they are now, they will only be destroyed. He is visibly shaken and repeats her grim choice of words in disbelief. Heiress explains that although the hero himself is unquestionably strong, they have no coordination together and would stand no chance against a massive demon horde. He accepts her point at once and says they first need to understand each other better, while she agrees that synergy is essential. Brightening up, he says that sounds right, and Heiress nervously admits that she has a suggestion for how to do that. Flustered, Heiress hesitates and grips her clothing as she struggles to say what is on her mind. Embarrassed, she awkwardly proposes that they start by getting to know each other better. He jerks in shock, completely flustered by the sudden turn. Staying close to him, the girl excitedly says her church friends told her this was the best way, leaving him stunned. The moment becomes overwhelming and emotionally difficult for both of them. He desperately protests that a girl should not do something like this in public. Even as he tells himself a hero should not look at this kind of thing, he fails to stay calm and insists he must look away. In spite of himself, he admits he is being drawn deeper into the tense and awkward moment. The girl says she has never done anything like this before and looks just as shaken, while he remains frozen with embarrassment. With a serious blush, she vows that she will do her best to understand him, addressing him respectfully as her hero. Growing even more nervous, she pleads with him, asking him to accept what she is trying to do. At the height of the chaos, he recoils in panic while she reaches toward him, and the entire interaction turns intensely uncomfortable. Heiress suddenly snaps back to herself, declares that this is not acceptable, and tells him not to waste his first experience on a dangerous misunderstanding. He right away seizes on her words and insists they should leave now, arguing that together with Heiress they can still defeat the Demon King. Embarrassed and near tears, Heiress softly calls him her hero and anxiously asks whether he dislikes her. Left staring into the aftermath of the moment, he sits in stunned silence and admits to himself that he completely messed up. In a dazed panic, he reflects that he nearly lost his composure to a girl while he is supposed to be the chosen hero destined to save the world and defeat the Demon King. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Clutching his hero's crest, he reminds himself that he is the hero and vows he will never again give in to temptation. When Heiress timidly calls out to her hero, he turns back in surprise and asks what she means. Looking embarrassed but earnest, Heiress admits she still has much to learn about him. With shaken uncertainty, she asks if he could please teach her one more time. Flustered and overwhelmed, the hero falls silent and decides he will start again tomorrow. At that time, he has no idea that defeating the Demon King will not be the hardest part of his journey from this town. He realizes the true danger waiting for him comes from improper traps set in his path. In the village, someone warns him that if he really is a hero, then he will die soon. He laughs off the fear and says that since he was chosen, he will do his best. A girl hesitates nervously, admits she has no other choice, and steels herself to act. Embarrassed but determined, she declares that she will be the first to join his company and protect him. A bald man desperately apologizes and says he cannot introduce the hero to any wizards, refusing to explain and urging him to leave. Standing alone outside, the hero realizes this is already the fifth rejection. He is left frustrated and isolated as the pattern of refusals becomes impossible to ignore. Before setting out to defeat the Demon King with Priestess Eris, the hero decides they should get to know their companions better, but he then admits he got distracted and wasted an entire day. As they prepare to split up and recruit allies, the hero reminds himself that, as a hero, he needs to find a wizard and wonders if there might be a shortage of them here. While standing in town, he is suddenly recognized when someone asks if he is the hero. He turns to find a cheerful witch-like girl calling their meeting a remarkable coincidence. Shocked, the hero realizes it is Lissa, greets her after a long time, and awkwardly tells her not to get too excited because it is embarrassing. He explains that this girl is Lissa Lumiere Longstream, the daughter of Count Lumiere Longstream from the territory where he was reincarnated, and that she used to be his childhood friend. Lissa proudly declares that she is a wizard and the top graduate of the Magic Academy, leaving the hero startled by her sudden confidence. The hero is impressed by her being the top graduate, and Lissa happily adds that this has brought her many offers from the country and various guilds. Trying to stay calm, he says that everyone wants talented wizards like her, and admits that they really are short on wizards. Seeing his need, Lissa says that if he truly wants her, then perhaps she could join him as a companion, leaving him caught off guard. Lissa corners him with a smug smile, pointing out that he has already been rejected by 5 places and saying she might consider helping if he asked properly. The hero turns in shock and demands to know how she even found out he had been rejected, especially by exactly 5 places. Flustered, Lissa insists it is only a hunch, then nervously admits she has been moving around the guild to keep other people from being introduced to him. She suddenly accuses him of making Priestess Eris his companion, while he can only stare back in confusion. The hero pushes back and asks why Eris is being brought into this now. Lissa bursts out that he chose Eris as his companion before choosing her, and her frustration finally spills over. As he stands there confused, Lissa points at him and declares that she was supposed to be the first one by his side. Embarrassed and emotional, she complains that when he first came to town, he was already with a priestess, and she bitterly recalls how close the two of them seemed. The hero leans in and dryly asks her to say that again, because he could not hear her clearly, leaving her even more rattled. Unable to contain herself any longer, Lissa storms off while declaring that she will prove just how useful her magic can be. Lissa calls on the spirit of water and invokes the blessing of the god of war as she prepares a dangerous attack meant to pierce the enemy. The hero panics and warns that triple chanting in the middle of town is far too dangerous. Lissa ignores the warning and unleashes Water Lance. The spell bursts in front of her, and the hero braces himself as the impact suddenly swallows the scene. He urgently calls out to Lissa and tries to apologize at once. When the smoke clears, Lissa is left in a deeply awkward state and looks back in shock and humiliation. The hero freezes, flushed and speechless as he realizes how uncomfortable the situation has become. Lissa snaps at him not to look and hurriedly tells him to take something for now while trying to cover herself. The hero awkwardly admits that triple chanting is difficult, then apologizes for making Lissa do something reckless just because he upset her. Still staring in surprise, he quietly insists that what she did was not reckless. He calmly tells Lissa that performing quadruple chanting is possible for him, and says today's result was only a coincidence, leaving her stunned at how casually he says it. Flustered and trying to explain herself, Lissa insists she was not nervous and says she was not trying to show off or thinking that way. Through tears and embarrassment, she admits she only thought that if the spell had succeeded, he might finally see her as impressive, then insists that was not really what she meant. The hero softens and tells Lissa that she has completely misunderstood the situation. He explains that Eris is only the second companion and says Lissa was always meant to be the first, adding that he had planned to tell her ever since saying goodbye in the village. Overwhelmed, Lissa suddenly clings to him and reminds him of the promise they made, while he can only stare in shock and call her name. The moment becomes overwhelming and emotionally difficult for both of them. He recalls that she had always been the strong and dependable leader back in the village, which makes this side of her hit him even harder. As he gently steadies her, he realizes Lissa is still just a girl beneath all that strength and quietly apologizes for being insensitive. Still processing everything, he awkwardly asks her to repeat what she had done with that priestess, unable to hide his confusion. Lissa tearfully admits she may lack experience, but swears she still won't lose to that priestess. The hero panics and blurts out that he can't let rivalry drive her this far. Blushing and shaken on the verge of tears, Lissa asks if she isn't allowed to be number one. The hero freezes in misery, realizing he has made yet another terrible mistake, while Lissa turns away in silence. His thoughts spiral as he grasps how bad this is, remembers he is still the hero, and fears ruin if anyone learns he behaved improperly with the Count's daughter and gets him cast out. Trying to contain the fallout, he nervously asks Lissa to keep this only between the two of them. At that exact moment, the priestess appears behind him with a calm smile and sheer terror grips him. He jolts at the sound of her voice, and the panic on his face is impossible to hide. In the crushing silence, a suspicious voice coldly asks who she is. Outside beneath the night sky, a group notices someone nearby, and one of them sharply demands to know where that woman went. Lissa looks flustered and admits the situation has become a serious problem for her. The story shifts to the next day, revealing that after his messy clash with his childhood friend and mage Lissa, he also ends up spending the following day with his companion, the priestess Eris. As the two girls stride ahead with confidence, the exhausted hero trails behind, and the narration hints this is the price of last night's disaster. The witch boldly declares that defeating the Demon King would be easy even without him. Lissa shyly explains that what they learn in school and real combat are completely different. Addressing the witch with respect, the hero panics inside and realizes they need to change the subject right away before the party tears itself apart. Trying to seize control, he urges them both to listen because he has a proposal. Lissa says the group lacks practical experience, so she suggests adding a veteran to cover that weakness. Eris happily praises him as expected of a hero, while Lissa adds that as a warrior he can even carry their luggage. The scene shifts to a narrow alleyway, quietly setting up the next encounter. As they pass through the alley, the hero says the informant mentioned a skilled warrior can be found around here. A rabbit tribe woman suddenly appears and apologizes, explaining that she was in a hurry. Caught off guard by the rabbit tribe woman, the hero awkwardly insists he is fine. The tension spikes when a hostile figure steps in and declares that Adila has been found. Several men surround the group and demand to settle things now, while the hero steps forward and tells them to back off. Protecting the woman, the hero firmly says violence solves nothing. The thugs sneer at him and sarcastically ask whether he really thinks he is some champion of justice. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. When it is over, the attackers are down and the hero turns to ask the rabbit tribe woman if she is all right. Overcome with relief, she grabs onto him and thanks him again and again, leaving him utterly flustered. The sudden closeness rattles the hero, and he awkwardly asks Adila to step back a little as she apologizes and says it was only a misunderstanding. Pulling himself together, the hero calmly asks what is going on and says he may be able to help. The rabbit tribe woman introduces herself as Adela Kajazeva and explains that she is a dancer from this town. Adela reveals that many men keep pressuring her into troubling situations, leaving the hero stunned by her situation. She explains that some nobles even turn violent, and when she refuses, they use guards to pressure her. Without a moment's hesitation, the hero declares that he will protect her, and Adila can only stare at him in surprise. He says that, as a hero, helping those in need is only natural, and urges her to find a solution with him. Adila thanks him with visible relief, though she admits she fears she will only bring him trouble. Still trying to leave, Adela says she had planned to return to her hometown and bids the hero farewell, but he rejects the idea at once. As she walks away, the hero is left dazed and inwardly admits that Adela carries a far more mature and striking presence than the others. A rough-looking man snaps at the boy and angrily calls him a little brat. When the hero approaches and asks if they are still looking for a fight, the men panic and beg him to stop and hear them out first. One of them hurriedly tells the hero to check whether his wallet or anything else is missing, catching him off guard. He pats himself down, goes still, and realizes his wallet is gone. The two men insist Adela played him, saying she lures men in and that he is her latest victim, while one claims he only turned around to look at her. The hero cries out in alarm, and the men urge him to hurry and chase after her. Elsewhere, Adela casually handles a coin pouch and remarks that he was easy to fool. Then the hero's earlier promise echoes in her mind, and Adela hesitates as his vow to protect her resurfaces. She reflects that until now men always backed off once they learned nobles were after her, and realizes he had been genuinely worried about her. With a conflicted smile, Adela admits to herself that she let a good man get away, and it feels like a waste. Rin catches up to Adela, grabs her, and firmly tells her he has finally found her. Adela is shaken that Rin caught up so quickly and admits she never expected to be found this easily. She curses her mistake and realizes she let her guard down because thoughts of him distracted her. Rin warns that she will have to answer for all the trouble she caused him, leaving Adela stunned. The surrounding men react crudely, and the moment turns painfully uncomfortable as Adela recoils from their attitude. Feeling cornered, Adela bitterly says no one is going to help her and calls Rin a scoundrel. Rin steps closer and calmly tells Adela that he has finally caught up with her. He moves between Adela and the men, confronting them as she watches in surprise. One of the men asks if Rin got fooled too, but Adela cuts in and urges Rin to leave with her instead. Flustered and confused, Adela apologizes, but Rin reminds her that he already promised to protect her. Surrounded by monsters, Rin shields the woman and declares that whoever is behind this will pay. The group races through the street as the chase intensifies and panic spreads all around them. Rin glances back and reminds her that a promise is still a promise. She steps in close and tells him to return the money and valuables he won from her, then coolly says they can discuss the rest later. With a teasing smile, she offers to become his companion in return and says traveling together sounds fun, leaving Rin startled. Caught off guard, Rin hurriedly explains that they are actually looking for a warrior. She moves in close and, noticing how flustered he is, asks if he is embarrassed. She points out how easily shaken he is and warns that someone truly manipulative could exploit that softness. The exchange grows uncomfortable as she keeps pressuring him, and Rin blurts out that behavior like this would get her thrown out of a brothel. She leans even closer and suggests she could follow his orders at any time, making the moment intensely uncomfortable. Rin freezes in panic as she tells him to just imagine it, and the discomfort instantly shows on his face. As she crowds him too closely, Rin desperately reminds himself that he has a mission and must resist this pressure. He tries to steady himself, but she notes that he is surprisingly stubborn and refuses to back off. With a confident smile, she says she will slowly wear down his resistance until he gives in, and the moment grows even more uncomfortable. The two women suddenly react to his explanation with disbelief, repeating that he is looking for a male warrior. Rin panics and realizes he has blundered again, while he awkwardly tries to explain that Adela is not what they think, and she cheerfully introduces herself. Adela clings to him and teasingly says it was adorable when he blushed and politely begged earlier, leaving Rin completely overwhelmed. The nun calls out that they need to talk with the hero, while the witch angrily demands an explanation as well. The scene shifts as the group arrives in a forested area, and the day's objective is to gather medicinal herbs. As they begin the task, the two women make it clear they want very different things from the outing, with one focused on deepening their friendship and the other quietly pursuing her own agenda. Lissa eagerly throws herself into the herb-gathering plan and urges the hero to collect everything together, while Rin jolts at her sudden closeness. Rin falls silent for a moment before bluntly telling Lissa to take the work seriously. Trying to regain control, Rin reminds himself that his second priority is training himself to resist pressure. As the air stays uncomfortably tense, Rin decides he cannot keep yielding to this kind of pressure, while a bystander anxiously senses things are only getting worse. Caught between the two women, Lissa burns with determination and declares that this is her chance to shine and surpass her rivals. But once she starts searching, Lissa quickly grows frustrated and complains that all the herbs look exactly the same. Seeing her struggle, someone calls out that Eris surely knows a lot about medicinal herbs. Eris right away steps in beside Rin and starts helping with the gathering, while Lissa can only watch from the background in frustration. Eris explains with a smile that medicinal herbology is a required subject in the church. Eris then offers a leaf to Rin and cheerfully tells him to try eating it. Eris happily nibbles the leaf herself first, showing Rin that it is safe to eat. She brightly tells Rin that the leaf will freshen his mouth, while Lissa watches the easy exchange with growing irritation. Lissa breaks into a sweat and realizes that if this keeps going, she is going to lose her chance. Trying to turn things around, Lissa claims that on the far side of the mountain there is an incredibly delicious and extremely rare animal. She eagerly urges the hero to come try it, boasting that it is a flavor worth bragging about, while Eris looks on in surprise. Adela reacts with sudden excitement and declares that she will go look somewhere else instead. Rin right away notices her slipping away and calls out to Lissa in alarm. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. A moment later, Adela calls to the hero from the bushes and asks him to give her a hand for a moment. Rin pushes through the herbs toward her and asks what is wrong with Adela. Adela suddenly grabs onto Rin and says she will handle things, catching him completely off guard as the moment turns painfully awkward. She then suggests that being out in the open would make it even more reckless, pushing the situation somewhere even more inappropriate. Rin hurriedly pulls the situation back under control and tells Adela she needs to take herb collecting seriously. He insists that he kept himself in check and declares that he is not the same man he was yesterday. Since she is too bored and says she cannot tell the difference between the herbs anyway, Rin asks Adela to help by searching for the specific medicinal herbs instead. A guide points out that the herb is an extremely rare medicinal plant that only grows beyond those mountains, and Adela is stunned by how far away that is. The explanation continues that bringing it back to the guild would dramatically raise Hiro-sama's reputation. Hearing that, Adela quietly asks Rin whether he would be happy if she managed to bring back that medicinal herb. Rin awkwardly tells her that of course he would, though he hesitates and starts to object about doing it today. Before he can stop her, Adela brightly declares that she will treat it as part of her training and go gather the herb for him herself. Rin suddenly notices Adela slipping through the trees and calls out to her in surprise. Even so, he reminds himself that today was supposed to be about strengthening their bond. Rin forces a smile and agrees they should continue gathering herbs for now, deciding they can deal with everything else later. He abruptly rushes toward Adela, startling her as he calls out to Hiro-sama in alarm. Rin panics and realizes the place Adela went to is dangerously hot, leaving him visibly shaken. When she asks why, Rin nervously admits he forgot to mention something important. He explains that the medicinal herb Adela ate earlier is the problem, while she listens without understanding. Rin then reveals the herb has a dangerous side effect, and his shock turns into desperation as he wonders how to stop this. He hurriedly explains that the herb reacts in a deeply uncomfortable way, while Adela innocently says it should not be a problem if he just lets it happen. Ren right away recoils and tells her not to come any closer, warning that if she touches him now, he will lose control. Adela grabs his clothes and says Hiro-sama only has to stand there and let her handle it, making the moment feel uncomfortably personal. Rin freezes in shock and embarrassment while Adela quietly asks if he will let her help him. When Ren reacts in confusion, Adela lowers her head and blames herself for leaving Hiro-sama in this state. She then says that since the other two are not around, they can deal with it in secret, which sends Ren into complete disbelief. Ren nervously wonders if this was all planned, and Adela cheerfully insists it is only a coincidence. Trying to make sense of it, Ren reasons that Eris would never let something this inappropriate happen out in the open, and Adela timidly agrees that she would be furious. Adela pleads for him to let her help, and the atmosphere tightens even more as she offers to assist him in a troubling way. At that exact moment, Lissa and Eris appear nearby, staring at the scene with instant suspicion. The two demand to know what is happening, and both Rin and Adela panic as they hurriedly insist that nothing improper is going on. Rin is left internally screaming as he realizes he has once again made a terrible mess of the situation. Adela cheerfully announces that she is skipping the item box and calls Eris over to look at what she is doing. Adela points out that there was a dragon on the way and asks if this makes the situation look dangerous enough, then casually says she gathered all the herbs from the mountain. Ren panics and says not to use them all at once, arguing they should save some for later because herbs will become scarce and they may need them for a future emergency, while Adela bluntly says she does not know any cooking methods beyond roasting for dragons. Rin forces an awkward smile as he tries to respond, but he is clearly still rattled by everything that just happened. As the group reacts in confusion, Rin wonders if he and Adela somehow deepened their bond a little. He right away realizes that was a terrible thought. decides he cannot let his guard down again, and starts thinking about how to outsmart the two girls, while the narration bluntly notes that they definitely did not deepen their bond. The scene shifts underground for coordination training where Adela unleashes water lance and proudly asks Rin how her magic looked and whether he saw it properly. Lissa and Eris protest that this does not feel like training at all and warn Adela not to charge ahead by herself. Adela smugly says it looks like she might have been the only one needed after all, while Rin notes that this side of Lissa feels fresh to him. Rin quietly calls out to Lissa, and Adela turns with a bright smile and asks what it is. Rin stops Adela from rushing off alone, warning her not to act by herself. Lissa sharply insists that they are supposed to be doing coordination training, clearly irritated by Adela's behavior. Adela confidently declares that defeating all the enemies herself should be enough, while Rin is left startled by Lissa's reaction. Adela runs ahead and boldly says she will prove she is the most reliable, but Lissa urgently tells her to wait. The ground suddenly gives way beneath Adela, and she crashes down through the collapsing floor. Lissa freezes in shock as she watches Adela drop into the darkness below. The cave continues to crumble as Lissa and Eris call out an alarm for Rin to save her. A deep shaft opens beneath them, revealing just how far Adela has fallen. At the bottom, Adela realizes she has dropped a considerable distance and sits amid the debris. Flushed and tense, Adela notices that Rin is very close, and the moment turns awkward. Adela, flustered and frustrated, admits that more importantly, she cannot believe she got caught in such a simple trap. Rin catches Adela in his arms and explains that he softened the impact of her fall with magic, then anxiously asks if Lissa is hurt. As they look around the pit, Adela says the boss must be close if they have come this far down and urges Rin to move quickly. Adela insists they should wait there for the other two, then confidently adds that once they defeat the boss, the dungeon will be cleared. Rin points out that Eris has the map and says she and Lissa should catch up with them soon. Adela glances aside and quietly asks Rin if he really trusts Lissa that much. Adela falls silent with a shadowed expression, and Rin notices the change and calls out to Lissa in confusion. The two suddenly spot something strange rising ahead of them from the ground. A huge mass of slime bursts upward before them, and both of them recoil in alarm. Staring at the creature, Adela realizes this chamber belonged to the boss, and Rin blurts out in shock that the boss is a slime. As the slime surges overhead, Rin urgently calls for Lissa to fall back at once, but Adela refuses to retreat. Adela declares that once they defeat this monster, the dungeon will be cleared, and she insists Rin should finish it quickly while she supports him. With fierce determination, Adela blames herself for the mistake and vows to make up for it by ending the fight herself. She right away casts water lance at the boss. The spell lands, but the huge slime simply absorbs the attack and looms over them without slowing. Adela freezes in disbelief, only able to let out a stunned reaction as Rin watches tensely beside her. The ground and air suddenly distort around them, and they realize in alarm that they have stepped into an anti-magic zone. Seeing danger closing in, Adela shouts for Rin to dodge right away. Before she can escape, the slime's attack traps her and the situation turns deeply distressing as she cries out in shock. Adela winces and struggles in distress as the pressure on her grows harder to ignore. Overwhelmed by the humiliating pressure, Adela blames herself and thinks this is the punishment she deserves. Rin rushes in at the last second, blasts the slime away, and catches Adela before she hits the ground. Shaken and vulnerable, Adela asks why he bothered saving someone like her. Rin right away rejects that thought and tells her he has no idea what she means. Holding back tears, Adela says it is only natural for him to save his comrades and pleads with Lissa not to run off on her own. Still carrying her, Rin can only give a quiet, uncertain reply as the tension hangs around them. Unsure how to react, Rin softly calls Adela by name and awkwardly suggests waiting for the other two somewhere else. Adela refuses, clings to him, and admits she wants to stay like that for a little longer. The other girls arrive and calmly note that the boss has already been defeated. As they find Rin holding the disheveled Adela, one of them points out that her clothes were damaged, while Rin nervously insists it is not what it looks like. The witch abruptly tells everyone to get out, taking control as the group turns toward her in surprise. She presses them again, demanding to know why they are still standing around and not moving. She explains that the vanguard has to go first or they will never make progress, warning that traps and other dangers could still be waiting ahead. The group reacts with uneasy silence, clearly thrown by her forceful decision. Rin tries to calm everyone by saying they should help each other and watch out for traps, especially pitfalls, while she sharply calls out to the others. Later that night, Rin remains outside near the building, alone and deep in thought while the area lies quiet under the moon. He steels himself and decides he is ready, telling himself that tomorrow they will finally set out to defeat the Demon King. The next moment, something suddenly strikes him from behind, sending him jolting forward in surprise as debris scatters. Adela appears behind him and teasingly asks whether it hit him, saying she thought he would catch it. Startled, Rin calls Adela's name, and she calmly apologizes, saying it was her fault for not catching it, and that even in complete darkness, she still needs to be able to handle that much. Rin hardens his resolve and insists he has to become stronger, or he will never be able to protect the companions precious to him. Adela excitedly praises him and playfully asks how many girls he has charmed like that, while Rin protests and tells her not to tease him. She quickly apologizes, then says she will make it up to him by teaching him the rabbit tribe's fighting techniques. Rin pauses in confusion as he repeats the unfamiliar term and wonders about the rabbit tribe. Before he can react, Adela moves in close and catches him off guard, leaving him flustered and unsure of what she is doing. Adela begins the lesson by telling him to sharpen his other senses with magic, explaining that rabbit tribe men use this method when they cannot rely on their ears. With his vision blocked, Rin realizes the training resembles blind fighting from stories, while Adela circles behind him at a distance. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Watching his strained reaction, Adela says this setup creates more tension, and Rin nervously realizes he has to stay focused. Breathing carefully, Rin tries to calm himself and concentrate while Adela remains nearby, waiting to see whether he can sense her next move. Adela says she's sharpening her senses with magic, then quietly warns Rin not to assume her attacks will come from only one direction. Under the moonlight, Rin pushes his own senses to the limit as Adela circles behind him, and the lesson suddenly turns far more tense. Adela abruptly goes still, visibly startled, and Rin calls her name as if he sensed something strange. In the night's hush, Adela asks why he isn't throwing it yet, and urges him to do it now. Rin confidently praises the secret technique, admitting he never expected it to work this well. Adela reacts with uneasy frustration as the others try to calm her down and tell her not to get angry. Rin cheerfully says this should be the part where they're both happy he's getting stronger. When asked whether he can dodge this, Rin eagerly accepts the challenge and tells Adela to come at him. What happens next catches Rin completely off guard, leaving him shaken and on edge. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Adela presses even closer and realizes her last move isn't affecting Rin the way she expected, making everything even more awkward. Adela reminds Rin he learned this technique last night and asks why he isn't dodging, while Rin admits his sharpened senses are only making this harder to endure. Overwhelmed, Rin desperately orders himself to stop thinking about the unbearable distraction and focus on literally anything else. Adela pauses as realization hits and says she understands now, admitting she had suspected it. Adela awkwardly points out what has been distracting him, instantly making the moment even worse. With a mischievous smile, Adela remarks that he really did seem to want her help with that problem after all. Rin panics and denies it outright, while Adela lightly pushes him to admit it. Adela moves on and calmly says she'll try the next approach instead, keeping Rin cornered. Adela declares that her next attack will be a deeply uncomfortable tactic, making the tension impossible to ignore. Adela argues that Rin should still be able to dodge since he knows exactly where the attack is coming from, and Rin, still flustered, insists he knows that. Adela tells Rin not to avoid it and insists he only needs to take one step back, even as the distance between them stays painfully close. With a teasing look, Adela tells him to move this way and remarks that the feeling is strangely unsettling, making the exchange even more awkward. Rin tells himself not to avoid it and to just step back once, but under the pressure his body stays rigid and frozen. The situation becomes unbearable as Rin blurts out for Adela to stop, overwhelmed by the closeness. Adela pulls back and asks whether Rin really learned the technique, pointing out that he never should have failed to avoid that move. The next morning, another girl cheerfully calls out that the hero is training early again. Then she stares at Rin in confusion and asks what he's doing after finding him hanging there in such a bizarre state. Looking closer, she questions the scene again and says this doesn't look like training at all. Rin solemnly declares that until the Demon King is defeated, he will avoid all distractions. At the table, The girls react with surprise and confusion as one asks why Rin is making such a grim face. Surrounded by the girls, Rin urgently begs them to help keep things under control because he can't endure the pressure alone, while one coldly asks why he can't just handle himself. Rin admits through visible strain that he can't keep himself under control, and a small figure mocks him for sounding pathetically unheroic. Flustered but determined, Rin declares that from now on all questionable behavior is forbidden, repeating the rule as he turns away. One girl narrows her eyes and concludes that those two are definitely about to do something reckless. Another calmly decides that if that's the case, she already has the perfect plan. With a confident smile, she decides she'll act first herself. As one says, she suddenly remembered something she has to do. Another quickly agrees and says she does too, while a third adds that she's heading out as well. The moment settles into a strange mutual understanding as they realize they're thinking exactly the same thing. Outside, the atmosphere turns tense as one girl presses in close and the pressure becomes impossible to ignore. Walking ahead in a panic, Rin orders them to look away right away if they think they're about to see something inappropriate. Rin tries to steel his resolve and insists that if he wants to avoid being led astray, he has to stop looking at anything distracting at all. Peeking out with forced confidence, he convinces himself this plan will keep him from being dragged into trouble by the three girls. A girl coolly judges his vow of abstinence and says the method already feels sloppy. Rin turns back in confusion, clearly thrown by her blunt response. She warns that if he bans everything at once, his self-control will snap within days, comparing it to brutal routines people always fail to keep. Panicking, Rin demands to know what he's supposed to do after she points out how fast impossible restraint usually falls apart. With a composed smile, she offers a different answer and suggests moderation instead. Rin freezes in shock as her solution catches him completely off guard. She calmly tells him that poor control over his own impulses is exactly why moderation is the real key to lasting discipline. Moving in with unsettling confidence, she offers to deal with his problem herself, and the moment turns dangerously personal as Rin recoils in alarm. Adela eagerly asks to be trusted completely and promises she'll do everything she can as Rin's companion. Rin is shaken and admits that, just as expected from Eris, she really would go that far for him. Eris cuts in with a sharp smile and asks why he's falling for such an obvious trap. Startled, Adela protests loudly and says it's rude to call her offer a trap. Eris coldly explains that men are weak when their impulses are stirred and says Adela's approach would only make the hero slowly lose control and grow dependent on her. Adela clicks her tongue in frustration and mutters that she was so close, making Rin even more alarmed. With teasing confidence, the other girl insists that moderation has benefits, but says she alone should be the one involved, making the moment deeply uncomfortable. She presses her case by saying even the hero seems to agree and argues that if this is unavoidable, it should at least not become excessively overwhelming. Adela fires back that the other girl is the clumsy one, and the argument escalates into a heated rivalry over who would handle the hero better. Rin desperately tries to stop them, saying there are practical techniques that can't be learned from books and have to be trained day and night. The girls suddenly appear, and Rin turns in shock as the confrontation he dreaded finally catches up to him. A violent burst of magic and impact erupts between them, turning the standoff explosive in an instant. Eris argues that if the hero truly wants to abstain, then as his companions they should support that, while demanding to know what the others are staring at. As the situation turns physically chaotic, one girl urgently tells him not to move, while Rin is left confused and overwhelmed by everything happening around him. Eris explodes in embarrassment and anger, calling Rin a pervert, while the others react with visible disbelief and awkward laughter. The argument flares hotter as one accuses the other of trying to cut in line, while the other snaps back that she has no right to talk and insists she's only here because of him. Completely fed up, Rin finally shouts for them to give him a break. Later, in a tavern-like setting, Rin slumps over a drink and bitterly reflects that this is how the whole mess began. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. After hearing him out, she tells Rin that talking once already seems to have helped, and he answers with renewed resolve that he'll do his best to remain abstinent. The three women approach with determination, deciding they should defeat the Demon King quickly, while one says it's her duty to follow the hero and another notes that he must be serious in his own way. One of them boldly declares that she'll abstain together with Rin until the Demon King is defeated. Another agrees, and Adela casually greets him as they close in. In an awkward flashback, The moment turns deeply uncomfortable as the woman praises it as the most intense ordeal she's ever had, and Rin awkwardly admits that she was impressive too. Rin panics and insists this isn't what it looks like, but before he can explain, the girls rush toward them in outrage. The narration explains that to obtain the relic witch's ring, which increases mana points, Rin came to the mansion where the witch had lived in life. The group splits up for other errands, with Eris summoned by the church and Adela heading to the casino, while someone also mentions the autumn festival. As they prepare to enter, Rin warns that the witch has become an evil spirit and tells her to be careful not to get possessed, while she confidently says it'll be easy. Inside the mansion, she activates enemy detection as they move cautiously through the dark corridor. After checking ahead, she quietly reports that this side is clear too, and Rin looks relieved as they press onward. Rin notices she's being more careful than she was in the cave, and she admits that last time she had let her guard down a little. Ren leans in and praises her directly, telling her she's a reliable teammate, and the sudden compliment catches her completely off guard. Flustered and blushing, she says he shouldn't say things like that so seriously, then adds that simple flattery won't get him anywhere. When asked what she means, she hastily insists it's nothing at all while trying to hide her reaction. Alone with her thoughts, she replays how close the hero was and how he called her reliable, then realizes she can't stop smiling. In the darkness, the witch's spirit seems to recognize a woman's body at last, signaling a dangerous shift inside the mansion. She suddenly reacts in confusion as an ominous presence closes in around her. Rin notices something is wrong and urgently warns Lissa not to go any farther. Lissa turns with an unsettling smile and coldly tells him he's already too late. As Rin rushes forward, he realizes her presence now feels completely different from before and right away suspects the worst. The truth becomes unmistakable as Lissa is revealed to be possessed by the witch's evil spirit. Possessing Lissa, the witch coldly says Rin can save her and claim everything in the mansion if he fulfills her demand, reminding him that Lissa's life is in her hands. Rin hesitates for a moment, then asks what that demand is. The witch answers with an inappropriate demand, and the atmosphere instantly turns deeply uncomfortable. She explains that she died with a lingering regret tied to her final moments, making the situation even more disturbing for Rin. Rin realizes the possessed Lissa is a dangerous opponent and tells himself he must not act rashly even as the situation grows intensely awkward. Forced into humiliating compliance for Lissa's sake, Rin endures it while insisting he has no other choice. As the ordeal continues, Rin notices the interaction is having a visible effect on her, and the tension becomes harder and harder to ignore. The witch mocks Rin for reacting so strongly, accusing him of losing composure while he struggles to stay in control. With a smug look, she says she'll have to silence his insolent attitude herself as the encounter turns even more inappropriate. She taunts him again, comparing his behavior to a trained pet and openly ridiculing how obedient he has become. Rin calls out to Lissa in alarm, asking if she is okay, still reeling from what just happened. The witch thanks him, then suggests a short break before they resume searching for the ring, praising him like a hero. She admits she still wanted to keep going until the very end, making the situation feel even more unsettling. Rin quickly objects and says they cannot go any further, but she pushes back, insisting she is still not satisfied. She urges him again to hurry, keeping the pressure on as the tension only thickens. Rin looks exhausted and humiliated as he bitterly admits to himself that he has fallen into the same trap again. He reflects that even if it was all for Lissa's sake, he still ended up giving in to the witch's demand all the way through. The witch looks fully restored and thanks Rin for bringing her the ring, while he can only stare back and uneasily call out to her. Cheerfully, she says she was already satisfied, but claims Lissa wanted even more, then adds that thanks to Rin, she can finally rest in peace. As the tension finally starts to ease, Lissa hesitantly asks what is supposed to happen next. The witch brightly says Lissa remembers nothing from being possessed, then declares that now that they have the ring, they should head back, while Rin calls Lissa's name in concern. With a teasing smile, she suggests Lissa may not have been completely under control at the very end, making the implication difficult to ignore. Lissa suddenly snaps and tells him not to ask her, while the witch cheerfully remarks that youth is wonderful. The next clue leads to an inn and mentions an item capable of affecting someone's feelings. Adela reveals an obviously cursed item, explains she won it at the casino, and admits she had considered secretly using it on a man, despite asking to speak with Ren alone. She urges Ren to take the item quickly while he hesitates and starts to object. The curse activates instantly, leaving their hands stuck together as Adela smiles and Rin recoils in shock and embarrassment. Rin realizes their hands are fused together and will not come apart. Thinking fast, Rin says Eris could probably break the curse. Adela agrees but warns that explaining this to Eris is going to be difficult, and the mood instantly turns awkward. Adela presses close and says she would not mind staying like this, making Rin freeze as the moment turns uncomfortable. She right away laughs it off as a joke, while the witch and Lissa watch Rin stand there flustered and overwhelmed. Adela explains that the curse makes them act like a couple, then suggests that if they do something date-like, their hands might finally separate. They end up sitting down for a meal, quietly preparing to test the curse in the most awkward way possible. Adela happily praises the food as delicious while Rin watches her, still tense and unsure how far this is about to go. With a bright smile, Adela tells him to feed her the sausage next, and Rin awkwardly agrees as the air grows even heavier. Rin forces himself forward, insisting this is only to break the curse, even as he nervously admits that this kind of situation has never happened to him before. As he hesitates with the food in hand, Adela looks at him curiously and asks what exactly he is doing. She points out that he is spilling the sauce, making his clumsy attempt even more painfully awkward. Adela calls to him and notes that his gaze is wandering, turning the moment sharply personal as Rin loses his composure. Adela eats the food and praises the taste, while Rin can only watch in stunned silence and struggle to stay calm. Rin notices their hands are still stuck together and wonders if sharing a meal alone is not enough to break the curse. Adela suggests they may need to do something even more like a real couple if they want the curse to loosen. Adela proposes something far too extreme, and Rin right away protests that she has skipped way too many steps. Flustered, Rin hurriedly suggests normal date ideas like shopping, movies, or seeing a play, and Adela reacts with surprise. Rin admits he has never really been on that kind of ordinary date before, so he is not sure what people are supposed to do. Adela explains that her past experiences with men were bleak, saying they usually either tried to use her or were afraid of her. Still clinging to him, Adela asks Rin what people normally do on a proper date, catching him completely off guard. Rin awkwardly steels himself and calls her name as if trying to commit to a plan, while Adela quietly waits for his answer. Rin suddenly declares that they are going to the park on a date right now, startling Adela with the abrupt decision. Adela eagerly pulls Rin toward the inn and urges him to hurry, while he nervously reminds her that they are still holding hands. As they walk through town hand in hand, Rin forces an awkward smile, and Adela notices the attention starting to gather around them. Rin points out the view over the entire city and even shows her the mountain where they once gathered medicinal herbs together. When Adela questions the hand-holding, Rin stiffly insists that walking like this is simply part of what their date is supposed to be. Seeing other couples around him, Adela quietly notes that they seem to be doing the same thing as everyone else. Rin tries to reassure her by saying the outing is supposed to be enjoyable, but Adela only grows more uncertain. With a strained expression, Adela admits she does not understand what is supposed to be fun about this at all. Rin looks up at her in surprise as she observes that both he and the people around them seem to be enjoying themselves. Left alone with that thought, Adela concludes that she is the only one who is not enjoying the date. Flustered and uneasy, Adela admits that the whole situation feels a little uncomfortable for her. Adela notices that Rin's hand is sweating badly while they keep holding hands, and his tension becomes impossible to hide. The moment becomes overwhelming and emotionally difficult for both of them. Trying to keep it together, Rin says they already got a guide map at the inn and insists they should still be able to have fun and act like a couple. Adela suddenly reacts to something, and Rin turns back warily as he asks what caught her eye. With an unexpectedly bright smile, Adela confesses that she is actually extremely nervous. Embarrassed, Rin quickly tells her to forget it, says they should move on to the next place, and decides they should just follow the guide. They continue through a busy area, where the outing draws even more attention and leaves Rin increasingly flustered as Adela stays close beside him. After wearing themselves out, Rin collapses and admits he is exhausted, while Adela reflects that dating drains energy in a completely different way. Still trying to sort out her feelings, Rin asks whether Adela did not enjoy the outing, at least a little while they were acting like a couple. Put on the spot, Adela stiffly looks down at him and asks for his answer, leaving the mood tense and uncertain. Adela suddenly stumbles into him and blurts out in surprise that he is heavy, while the abrupt contact makes the moment even more awkward. Adela quietly says that if he suddenly claimed this was how normal couples act, she would not really believe him, because she thinks men often use that excuse to mislead someone. Lying there in embarrassment, Rin admits that she has a point and says that is unfortunate. Adela says that if the hero had invited her, she would not have misunderstood anything, revealing a more sincere side of her feelings. With a soft expression, Adela simply thanks him. Ren falls silent for a moment, then awkwardly says that is good, though his stunned face shows he is still rattled. As their hands remain linked, Rin nervously points out that they still have not let go and asks what they should do now. Adela says there is only one thing left to do, and the atmosphere instantly turns dangerously personal. Smiling at him, Adela says it is her way of thanking him for today, and implies she will speak with him later at the inn, making the exchange feel deeply uncomfortable. The scene shifts to the next day, as Ren recalls returning early that morning and remains troubled by what happened. Ren heads into a confessional, a place where people can anonymously share their worries and regrets. Following Eris's recommendation, Ren kneels inside and prays for someone to hear the concerns weighing on him. The nun warmly invites him to go ahead and tell her everything. She senses that the hero never gets time to himself and must be carrying many worries all alone. She decides that if she listens to him hearing confession, they can sort those problems out afterward. Delighted by Eris's insight, she praises her perception and decides Eris is exactly the kind of companion she needs. She eagerly says yes and asks what he wants to confess. Rin bluntly admits that he is thinking about quitting being a hero, leaving her stunned. Rin explains that he has been wrestling with this for a while because even though he has a duty to defeat the Demon King, he feels guilty every time he ends up getting too close to his companions. Just as she softly begins to respond, Rin is startled when she tells him that his confession is actually wonderful. She explains that an ordinary person chosen as a hero would usually grow arrogant and reckless. She tells Rin that the fact he feels responsible for his actions already proves he has the qualities of a true hero. Overwhelmed by her words, Rin thanks her and breaks down emotionally. As Rin cries, she is left wondering if she has moved him to tears. Rin says he actually feels much better after talking about it, and explains that Priestess Eris from his group was the one who led him to this place. Hearing that, she remarks that Eris sounds like a kind-hearted woman. Rin then admits that lately he has started thinking Eris might actually have a hidden side, leaving the nun visibly shaken. She quickly suggests that may just be his imagination and urges him to remember Eris's good qualities instead. Rin points out that Eris handles all the cooking and sewing for the party while the others look on. He adds that Eris also takes care of the group's administration and finances, while in the background the party's usual chaos continues around her. Rin says he already owes Eris a great deal and feels it would be wrong to speak badly of her, though he admits her behavior can sometimes feel troubling. Hearing that, the nun eagerly says she wants to hear more good things about Eris and thinks recognizing her many virtues could improve Eris's image. Rin awkwardly reveals that every morning, Eris is the first to wake him in a way that makes the situation feel uncomfortably personal, then quickly says there are other things to mention besides that. He recalls that Eris's morning attention often becomes overly familiar, making the atmosphere tense and difficult for him to handle. The memory continues with Eris greeting Rin warmly as soon as morning comes, reinforcing how direct and personal her behavior is. The nun becomes flustered as Rin adds that Eris has been steadily getting bolder, and she blurts out that his innocent reactions only make the situation harder to process. Embarrassed, Rin says it is nice to be praised, but he also points out that people in this area are usually strangers, as if trying to explain why the situation feels unusual. The nun starts to panic and thinks that if someone else were to learn about this, she would not know how to respond. When asked whether something is wrong, she hurriedly denies it, but her reaction shows the topic has clearly shaken her. Overwhelmed, she is left shaken with mixed emotions and can only think that the intensity of this happiness is almost unbearable. The nun sits alone in a daze, troubled by the lingering thought that the hero has once again revealed something far too personal. A sudden thud shatters the silence, and Rin jerks toward the door at the sound. Rin calls out in concern, asking if everything is all right after hearing the impact. Eris appears with a strange smile, and Rin freezes in shock when he sees it as her. She apologizes and says she will get help at once, still calling him Hiro-sama with formal respect. Wearing an uneasy look, Eris asks him to step into the confessional and urges him inside, making the air feel strangely tense. As she moves away, Rin is left flustered, thinking to himself that this is happening again. Elsewhere, a package arrives at Eris' church, and the messenger is thanked before departing. Inside is a magical item said to affect men, presented as unusual clothing, and the mood instantly turns awkward. Eris admits she spent enormous money and effort tracking it down, then tells herself that relying on magic may not be right, yet wonders if using it before the hero could still work. Eris clings to the reckless idea and vows to win the hero over, revealing just how far her thoughts have spiraled. Adela suddenly appears hanging upside down from above, stunned by the rare magical item and demanding to know how Eris got it. Eris panics when Adela asks how long she has been there, and Adela calmly admits she saw the package arrive and slipped in after it. A chill runs through Eris as she realizes this is bad and fears what will happen if the hero finds out about the suspicious item. In Eris's imagination, the hero looks at her with deep disappointment and accuses her of trying to influence him with a magical item, and the thought feels unbearable. Desperate to stop things from spiraling further, Eris tries to silence Adela and nervously starts to object. Adela casually says she has used it before and claims there is a trick to it, then offers to help Eris with it, making everything instantly more awkward. Off to the side, Eris's imagined fear keeps worsening as the hero coldly asks if she really expects him not to despise her for using magic to win him over. Another imagined reply cuts even deeper as he asks whether loving him is somehow wrong, leaving Eris reeling. Adela answers with absolute conviction and tells Eris that if she truly wants him, then she has to do whatever it takes. Eris blushes and quietly admits that this must be what it means to be truly serious. Adela smugly insists that no magical item could ever outshine her own confidence and says Eris is wasting her money, drawing an angry outburst from Eris. Flustered but determined, Eris agrees and tells herself that if she wants something, she has to chase it with everything she has.